To discuss this, I have joined by Professor Shahram Akbarzadeh. He's a director of the Middle East Studies Forum at the Deakin University, Australia. He's also a non-resident fellow at the Middle East Council on Global Affairs at Doha. Thank you very much, Dr. Shahram Akbarzadeh.
Great to be here. Thank you, Malik.
Thank you very much for your time. So we were discussing about this, that there was a peace deal, there was some negotiations going on, and so what's going on? Because right now, again, things seems to be going and heating. So where you see this recent, because two times in last 1 week, the US has strike on Iran, and now there are news that the Iranians has targeted some American bases. So how would you elaborate?
Well, great to be here, Malik. That's a good question. What is going on? It's really difficult to ascertain what exactly is happening, because in the past 2 days, there have been 2 strikes by US on Bandar Abbas, especially the missile and drone facilities, that the US claims was carried out as a matter of self-defense to prevent Iran from laying more mines in the Strait of Hormuz. And Iran has retaliated by hitting, they claim they have hit US bases. It's difficult, as you mentioned, difficult to ascertain how accurate that is. We don't know which base that they targeted. I think the bottom line is that none of the sides, Iran or the United States, are prepared to admit that they have not achieved full victory. Both of them wish to claim full victory in this conflict, and that's why this negotiation and ceasefire is dragging on, because each side, the minute each side says their agenda is now being accepted, and they're setting the tone of the conversation, the other parties start saying, no, we reject that, which makes it really difficult to actually conduct negotiation and ceasefire talks.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, how sensitive is this? Because it seems that if there was not any negotiation, there was not any peace talks. So, where do you think that the whole region will be heading, and what are the Washington intention in this? Because Donald Trump said that he don't care even his midterm. He also warned Oman. So I mean, and then they also shows that US and Israel have also some differences. So I will talk this question also later in detail, that whether they have the differences or not. But this question, I would like that you should focus on this, that what exactly for the region mean, what could be the Washington intention right now, and where this region will heads if there is any other escalation or retaliation.
Well, I think the irony of the situation is that both Iran and the United States want the war to finish. They're actually desperate for the war to end. It's just that, as I mentioned, none of them is prepared to allow the other claim victory. And so this has put them in a really deadlock, and this is dragging the whole region, affecting the whole region, dragging the whole region down. We know that the Strait of Hormuz is closed. Did President Trump even think that Strait of Hormuz would be an issue when he started the war? I don't expect that he did, because when the war started, he started talking about regime change, talking about Iran's missile program and Iran's nuclear program, and there was no mention of Strait of Hormuz. Now, discussions are focused on opening up the Strait of Hormuz, because that is taking the whole global economy hostage, and is affecting other Arab states in the Gulf region. So this is important. This is a vital issue for the economies of the region. And I am not surprised that they are trying to put pressure and lobby President Trump to come to have some sort of diplomatic solution with Iran. We know Oman, we know Qatar, a lot of the Gulf countries have been trying to convince Trump to end the war because they know that their economy is suffering terribly. And not only in terms of being targets of Iranian attack, just the embargo is really affecting their economies. If
So,
President Trump, let me
yes.
just finish this thought. If
Yes.
President Trump does not see fit to return to the negotiation table and agree on something, on some kind of a deal, I think the economies of the region will be pushed back for decades.
So, do you think that Donald Trump really serious to open the Strait of Hormuz, or they are using Strait of Hormuz as a strategical tool? Because sometimes it's like that this action and the words are quite different. So, in that case, sometimes it's doubt that U.S. Is serious to open Strait of Hormuz.
I think the US is serious about opening the Strait of Hormuz, and US is extremely annoyed that it has given Iran this strategic asset, because before the war, there was no issue with the Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz only became a strategic asset for Iran because the war started. And Iran had threatened to close it and then acted on that threat. And all of a sudden, Iran has another card to play and put the squeeze on Trump. So, yeah, I think the US is serious about opening it. But as I mentioned, Trump does not want to admit defeat. So that's why it's dragging on.
So Donald Trump also threatened Oman. I think there was some question someone asked, and then he used some very strong words. So where did this threat coming from, and what is actually the matter that why Oman has been threatened by Trump? I think, are you following this also?
Well, I think we know that Oman and Iran share the two boundaries of Strait of Hormuz. We know that Oman has been working very closely with Iran and the United States to find a solution to this conflict. In January this year, the Omanis were promising that a deal was so near, within reach. So I'm not exactly sure what happened in the past 2 days, whether the Omanis had hinted that they might agree with the Iranian regime of putting tariff on ships going through the Strait of Hormuz, or whether Trump has interpreted a statement from Oman to mean that the Omanis are okay with the Iranian control of the Strait of Hormuz. But the end result is shocking. The end result is that President Trump has threatened to attack Oman. That is the first in history, basically, where a strategic partner threatens to attack its junior partner in a situation where those parties are all on the same side and trying to manage and mitigate tension and conflict. It again makes the United States look so bad for the region and international community as an unreliable partner. How can you be a partner with the United States where it is threatening to bomb you because of a disagreement?
So where you see Israel and the US differences, because before this Hajj pilgrimage, there was some telephonic call between Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and UAE leaders with Trump, and they convinced Trump that to avoid any disruption of the Hajj pilgrims' flight, I think that the US should delay. And after that, we saw that there was some differences that emerged between Tel Aviv and Washington. So, do you think that there are some differences? Because Netanyahu also given a statement that Israel will defend Israel without the US involvement. So, where you think that all these things are connecting? Is there any real differences between Netanyahu and Trump?
There are big differences between Trump and Netanyahu. I think the mistake that President Trump made was to let himself be, in a way, tricked into going into a war that everyone else would have known is opening a Pandora's box. Trump went to the war based on Netanyahu's assessment that this is going to be a quick war. Killing the leadership is going to lead to regime collapse, and Trump can claim victory and walk away happily. Trump has realized that that idea was false, that Netanyahu's assessment was too optimistic or pie in the sky, and that Netanyahu actually has a different agenda here. Netanyahu's agenda is regime change, pure and simple. So Netanyahu will do everything in his power to bring about regime change in Iran, to make the Islamic Republic collapse. Trump toyed with that idea for a day or two of regime change, and now he's walked back from that idea because he is seeing that's not quite possible. He is not claiming to have achieved regime change because the Supreme Leader's son has succeeded him. That's not regime change by any stretch of imagination, and no analyst and no observer would support that it's a regime change in Iran. But Trump wants to claim victory, let him. End of the day, Trump wants to achieve a peace that he can claim as a victory. That is peace on his terms. He doesn't want regime change. He wants peace on his own terms. Netanyahu wants regime change. So every time there is negotiation and discussion and there is prospects that talks could lead somewhere, we see an escalation of conflict by Israelis to torpedo talks, to undermine prospects of a peaceful settlement. That is why I think partly why we're seeing an escalation in Lebanon, where Netanyahu is advancing its military operation north of the Litani River, basically undermining prospects of ceasefire, because we know Iran has made it clear any ceasefire in the Persian Gulf and Strait of Hormuz needs to also include Israel and Lebanon. They cannot have a ceasefire in the Persian Gulf when there's war going on in Lebanon.
So it's very tricky and very difficult situation, because at one side mean that if the Palestinians are at there and Israel is derailing this peace process while creating a problem in Lebanon by its continuous aggression. So mean that how long this situation can exist, because Donald Trump, if there is a midterm and Trump will not get any major victory, or if he become a lame duck president, so it's mean then the Israel will have more leverage on the situation. So how you think that, especially this aspect, that even in Israel there are elections, Netanyahu is facing a continuous pressure from the opposition, but while creating tension in Lebanon, do you think Israel has leverage?
Okay, so there are two different elections and they work differently. I think for midterm election in the United States, of course, public opinion in the United States is against the war. That much we know. But polls also suggest that support for the war is much higher among Republican voters. So people who already vote Republican are more likely to be okay with President Trump's war on Iran. So as a result, I don't think Trump is going to suffer terribly among his Republican base because he's conducting the war. So that's the irony. The public opinion in the United States doesn't like the war, but his support base is behind him. so far. And this could, of course, change. In Israel, it's a different story. Netanyahu believes that being a war leader gives him more credibility and enhances his chances of electoral success. That is a risky assumption in Israel because although war leaders have typically received support from population, from their electorate, the war in Gaza, the war now in Lebanon, these seem to be never-ending wars. They don't seem to come to a complete end. There is no clear victory that Netanyahu can claim. And that really undermines his effort to use the war as an asset to gain popularity in Israel.
So recently, also inside Iran, the Western media has been discussing about the former president Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. So what is the story behind this? Why he is again in the headlines?
Well, there were reports that somehow some people in the US administration thought that Ahmadinejad might be a good candidate to replace the current leadership. I cannot fathom how they thought Ahmadinejad might be a better leader. Of course, there were some differences and disagreements between Ahmadinejad and the previous supreme leader when Ahmadinejad was president. But Ahmadinejad has always been a firebrand president. He has been very anti-United States, and he has done everything. He did everything in his power when he was president to push Iran closer to China, so really reorient Iran's position and strategically become more close to Russia and China. So I cannot understand why they thought Ahmadinejad might be a better alternative.
So do you think that this might be some propaganda or some fake news?
These days, it is really difficult to know what is fake news and what is not fake news. But the reports we have seen seem to suggest that this was a real consideration, that they were really considering him as a possible alternative.
So let's come to the recently peace talks, because it's a couple of weeks that Pakistan mediated, and there was a Pakistan Army chief also went there. And there is a lot of negotiations going on. So how you assess that on which thing Iran is fully agreed, and what are there are differences, because there is the nuclear uranium, there is Strait of the Hormuz, and then there is the frozen assets and sanctions on Iran. So that being an analyst, how think that which things are still the critical point, and there is not any that consensus developed?
Well, first, Pakistan has really elevated itself in this conflict as a regional mediator, which has been really good for Pakistan. And I think Pakistan has really played its cards right. Pakistan is an ally and a partner of the United States. That's true. Pakistan is also very close to Saudi Arabia. There are security arrangements and agreements with Saudi Arabia. So the fact that Pakistan has managed to put itself forward as a mediator is important. And Iran has respected Pakistan's role and welcomed it. So far, so good. But this hasn't really helped address the red lines that Iran has. The Strait of Hormuz remains to be blocked. As I mentioned before, it was not even part of the discussion, but now is very much the number one topic of conversation. And Iran continues to insist that it needs to maintain its right to enrich uranium. Uranium enrichment is a sovereign right of the state of Iran, they claim. So that is a red line that they are not going to give up. There is some discussion of giving up some of the enriched uranium that is much higher than civilian use. I think it's 60% now. But it's not clear how that's going to be, how the enriched uranium is going to be shipped out, whether it's going to go to Russia or to another third country. That point is not discussed, and we have not heard of that in public domain. So red lines continue. Iran is not giving up on its missile program, not giving up on its proxies, not giving up on its right to enrich uranium, and of course to maintain a nuclear program that it insists is for civilian use.
So my last question, Professor Shahram, that how you think that the next couple of days and weeks might unfold, because there is again a little skirmishes started, and it seemed that there are some big events. There are FIFA, there are some other Hajj is also going to be end now. So how you analyze that? Will this peace talk will be mature, or there is another round or another escalation and aggression the world might face?
As you know, Malik, it is impossible to predict the future, especially when President Trump changes his mind from one day to the next. But if we go by indications and the trend so far, as you mentioned, we have seen skirmishes between Iran and the United States. There have been 2 days of fire exchange between the two. As you mentioned, Hajj is coming to an end, so the United States does not feel the constraints of not fighting Iran during the Hajj period. So I think all indications suggest that we are going to see another flare-up between Iran and the United States, which puts us back where we started, really, 2 months ago.
Thank you so much, Professor Shahram, for your insight. We were discussing today in the Eastern Horizon live streaming about the situation that's developing again in the Middle East after the US strike on Iran, and then Iran retaliated. So how things will be unfold, I think that we will be follow up. So you can like our page, share our podcast, and follow us, because your liking and following us will give us encouragement to do more Eastern Horizon episode. Thank you very much, and we will conclude this podcast here. Thank you so much.